the original Predator. And you'll notice this is, quote, the home of the Warriors. He produced Walter Hill's The Warriors as well.
I didn't notice either of those things. I noticed that this was taking place in October, and I was immensely disappointed. Apparently, Shane Black can write movies that don't take place at Christmas. Although these days, with the Christmas creep, at least there would have been holiday stuff in the stores.
And that seems to be because Rory is having these issues with these bullies. We see in their introductory scene pulling the fire alarm, and it sends this kid into an autistic panic. He doesn't evacuate like the other kids, and they terrorize him, knock over all the chessboards, and we know he's smart. We would have already probably surmised that, but he's able to put all the pieces back exactly as they were there before, and so we know that he's ostracized because he's different, but also very brilliant, and that will be a convenient way for him to learn the entire Predator language and be able to solve all the problems they have with communicating with the creatures and finding their ships.
Maybe it's only me thinking this, but I do wonder if Shane Black and Fred Decker know anything about autism that they didn't see in Rain Man.
Well, I would suspect they put this in here. I mean, it could be one of two things. It could either be focus group, like you need to have something for children, but this is an R-rated film. Children theoretically are not going to be able to see it in theaters. I think this is just a passion for him. I think that the things that are in here, autism and the VA, are stuff that Shane Black wanted to be in here, very specifically.
It's just his powers and everything. I was just so hard thinking about Rain Man and the fact that he beats his own ears when the loud noise comes, just like Raymond did in Rain Man with the fire alarm. And what a terrible freaking school teacher. The fire alarm goes off. The teacher stands up, goes to the door, watches every child leave except Rory. Rory is right there in the middle of the aisle, and the teacher's like, whatever. Closes the door and leaves Rory in this room to probably burn to death.
Good thing it's a fake fire drill.
Thank goodness. I want to thank the movie for teaching me that I don't have to pay my P.O. Box bills, because if I don't do that, the mail gets delivered to my house. Because I didn't know that was the case. I'm stupidly paying for my P.O. Box. All I gotta do is just not pay. Because I'll drop it off at my house. I mean, I could not believe... How about a postcard? Or how about say, we have your package, come to pick it up? No. My second movie logic shortcut of the movie, but this one made me laugh out loud. Laugh out loud. It makes no sense why this stuff was delivered, but boy am I glad it was.
I actually really liked the line that said, my dad goes off and kills people so you can be a mailman.
I thought it was terribly convenient that in these next couple of scenes where his mom gives him Halloween costume he doesn't like, that a giant mask is in a box and his dad has a magic invisibility ball. Someone out there thought that was clever writing to have all these different ways this kid can disappear, but for me, I kind of found it contrived.
And I'm guessing that this was a bigger part of the original draft of the movie, that this was much more of Rory's story.
No.
Because, I mean, what he'll ultimately do is go trick-or-treating and blow up a bully's house. This feels kind of strange that he's given all of this stuff and he does so little in the story.
It's actually very similar in the original ending. I mean, the first hour of this movie is pretty much how the two of them wrote it, because I read the 2016 draft. There's a few lines here and there that are cut, but it's pretty much the same. That, yeah, he gets the mask, he summons Upgrade, and then he decides to go trick-or-treating. I mean, that's pretty much how it goes, and even down to the helmet fires itself.
Yeah, but afterwards is what I'm saying. Like, of course, that's the setup, but then, like, this kid doesn't matter. He just becomes this tool for opening the door. He's just a MacGuffin that gets passed around, and it's not his story. I was afraid that this was going to be a repeat of E.T., but they actually marginalize him once we have this bus full of loonies, that they become everything in the film.
He did phone home, Stuart, just for the right.
Yes, he did, yes.
All right, when we get to the bus full of loonies, I am very happy, because these are personalities that this movie had been lacking. Again, I said I liked Sterling K. Brown because I think he was fun to watch on screen, but Boyd Holbrook and poor Jacob Tremblay, neither of them are holding me. But when you get Keegan-Michael Key and Thomas Jane and even some people I don't know, Augusto Aguilera and...
Yeah, what's so big about these people?
They are fun. They have personalities. They tell jokes. They are the best part of this movie.
But you were making it sound like, well, I know them, so that's good. It's not like you have the Thomas Jane fan club poster up. I mean, Keegan is like, it could have been me. Like, he's watching his friend win an Oscar, and he's doing Rocket Mortgage. I mean, this guy, these are all C-stringers. None of these these people are big time.
Hey, it's not because of who the actors are, although in the case of Thomas Jane, it did help. Like I just said, I don't know Augusto Aguilera. I don't know Trevante Rhodes, but I still really like them as part of this group. This group has an energy that is very engaging.
Well, I hope you like it because that's the entire show for the rest of the movie. He's built something he can't get away from is what the problem becomes, is that you can tell Shane Black is passionate. He really wants to have something to say about vets that have been tossed off and not being well treated. And I think there's a story to tell. I wish he had written that script. We could follow that in a believable way. But once these people come into it, it kind of reminded me of The Thing from Another World. If you remember that old sci-fi movie, we complained there were so many people in the room, and it wasn't there because they were fodder. They're not like future body count. The point is they're just always chattering and nattering, and it takes away the whole fear component. There's no reason to be afraid of the predator or anything that's going to happen because you have these nonstop jokes being bantered around.
You know who I thought of the whole time with these guys? Is those three friends from Ant-Man, the three buddies, because they constantly made jokes to one another and they distracted. Although in Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2, they were not overused, but here these guys, they just monopolized every scene in the rest of the movie to the point where it really became their movie and no longer Boyd Holbrook's.
I agree. I was thinking Ant-Man because of the close-up magic. This is the second movie I've seen this summer where somebody's making playing cards disappear. I thought that was a very strange coincidence there, but I just had fun with these people. But you're right. I'm kind of going back to what you said, Brock, in that at this point, it's not that Boyd Holbrook isn't the lead of the movie. It's not that he doesn't have the most lines and the most scenes. It's that he's the least fun person on the bus to watch.
He's Kermit the Frog, and the rest of these guys are the Muppets. Because all the other Muppets are exciting and funny to watch, obviously different personality, and this guy is the lead who has to keep the loonies together.
What it is I feel like this is Shane Black's Malou, right? Like this Coyle character, it feels like a repeat of his character from the original Predator as he's sitting here baiting the guy with Tourette's, always saying these outlandish jokes. It's the kind of things he would have said to the rest of the crew when they were out in the Nicaraguan jungle.
Absolutely.
But I just get tired of it. I don't think it's that funny, and I definitely think it's a detriment to the movie that it just hands these guys endless Tourette's jokes. If this movie were supposed to be exciting or scary or about the Predator, boy, this should have been its own movie. I wish that Shane Black had written a story about vets, because I can tell he cares, and I would care, but shoved here in this way, I think that it's problematic.
I read an interview with Thomas Jane where he said that this whole crew is just suffering PTSD, and that's what they're all going to someplace for. But it doesn't come across that way in this movie. There were, in the original script, some scenes of McKenna having nightmares and flashbacks to previous wars to show he too was suffering PTSD. I think they just become the funny crazies. And not only is that insensitive to those who suffer mental disorders, but it doesn't give me a reason to see them as connected. I don't know what keeps them all together. And how did they all end up on a bus with McKenna when they've all been together in group therapy and yet McKenna just showed up? It's hurting my head.
Yeah, let's not analyze it anymore. Let's look at the other major character in this storyline that gets shoehorned in. Dr. Casey Brackett, a evolutionary biologist who they invite to come to their lab, and then when she decides to look at one of the vials they don't want her to know about for some reason, they want to kill her. I mean, this makes no sense.
Oh my God.
They just want to know if someone fucked an alien.
She's not the worst casting of a scientist we've ever reviewed. Denise Richards still holds that and is my low bar. I thought Olivia Munn would be Denise Richards bad. She is not.
No, I think the actress is fine. I'd have no problem with the performance. I know that the movie studios, they quantify. We need to have a female in here, and she needs to kick ass because that's the trend right now. And so, yes, in theory, she's a scientist, but mostly this is about her doing acrobatics, jumping on buses, firing trank guns, all of that kind of stuff. Is she needed for this film?
I had the same thought about Denise Richards. How can I not? And I still have a bad taste in my mouth from her doing Psylocke in that last X-Men movie, right?
Well, that's a bad tasting movie, yes.
Yeah, but I don't dislike Olivia Munn. I don't believe her as a scientist, but I did actually like her in action mode. I thought that worked pretty well. I don't see how a scientist thinks it's a good idea when a big alien's running amok in a scientific lab that you actually follow decontamination protocol. Why would she do that? I mean, maybe because she's a scientist, she feels a need to decontaminate, but some of the choices she made in this movie don't befit a scientist.
Well, she decontaminated because she wasn't going to be let out of the room otherwise.
Okay, but so she is as good as an action star, but a questionable scientist. Not because it's Olivia Munn playing a scientist, but the scientist herself makes incredibly weird choices for a scientist. I don't get it.
She is bad as a scientist. I'm going to say I do not like Olivia Munn as an actress. She looked great. She was great cosplay in X-Men Age of Apocalypse, but anytime she opened her mouth, it was terrible. I've also seen Office Christmas Party. She's ruinous in that film, which is not a very good film anyway, but she can't hold her own against comedians. And here, I really disliked her in scientist mode. I don't buy her as an evolutionary biologist. I don't understand her story. And even in the original script where it exists, and having read it in subtitles on this one and reading it in the original script, I still don't understand her story of how she got involved in this project, because she wrote a letter to Clinton when she was 6. And when she's told about DNA, she doesn't ask about DNA. She doesn't go to a microscope. She gets an iPad and is like, who is this guy? I want to talk to him. Why does a biologist want to talk to him? But when she picks up a gun and starts running and isn't trying to be smart, I go with her. She's fine in this movie. But anytime she's trying to speak science, it hurts me.
Yeah, well, they don't need this. This movie draws this thing out when they could just speak to it right at the get-go. We have a scientist here, Sean Keyes, played by
Jake Busey, who is Gary Busey's son, and the name Keyes. It was ringing a bell. I looked it up. Gary Busey played Keyes in Predator 2. So Jake Busey is Gary Busey's son in universe. I love it.
Okay, well, yes, that is why he got the job. There's no other reason to ever cast him.
Agreed.
Yeah, because I did think about it. I mean, when I think of him, I think of Starship Troopers. I think of The Frighteners.
Contact.
Yeah, I think of Contact. I don't think of anything from this century.
They already have these vials of liquid. They already seem to know. It's like they're calling in Olivia Munn for confirmation. They want to just have another doctor take a look at the evidence and say, yeah, you're right. This is the big retcon of this movie. And they tease it all movie long. And it's kind of horrible, right? Like, if you're a Predator fan, the idea that we're going to retcon that rather than hunting because they like the sport of it and they like to chase big muscular Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's tough. No, he's got the best DNA and they want to drink his spine? That's crap.
It is terrible, but it got me thinking. All right, Predator as a first movie is a guy out hunting, okay? So if you're a rabbit and you are making movies for other rabbits and you make a movie called The Human and it's about a guy who's come out to shoot you and laid traps for you and done all this and killed your rabbit buddies. Okay, what's the sequel to that like? Is it just always the hunter with the gun and he's just coming to take your pelt?
Sequel? I would not even think that would be successful.
You know the analogy I'm drawing
I
here.
think I know where you're going.
So I feel like they're in a catch-22 because nobody wants to see the rabbit movie probably at all, but
No.
you definitely don't want to see it when the guy goes back home and just puts his feet up, cracks open a Pabst and watches some TV, you know? So we don't want to explore the Predator world. We don't want to ask the questions that were there from the first movie of how can he be so bestial, and yet are there Predator scientists who made the ships? I mean, where are they getting all this?
I think you're wrong. I think we've always wondered about the world. I think that has been an enduring question for both the Xenomorph and for the Predator, and they tried to answer that in previous movies. I mean, that was why Robert Rodriguez went to another planet in that third film, is that we do wonder where these people come from and why they might want to do this hunt so badly.
But we saw it in AVP Requiem.
Stop.
No, I can't stop. It's a movie. It's a movie in the Predator series. It's a movie that's even referenced. One of the spears in Key's office is the spear from AVP 1. They're not taking it out of continuity, so I'm not going to. But I didn't like even going there and seeing the wolf get his call to come clean up Earth. You're right, we do want to know more about them, but it becomes the catch-22 of, if you start showing us, which they do in this film, predator scientists and predator nerds, I think it just takes away from what makes them scary.
Around this time, too, Arnie, they bring up something that's against the Predator, but I thought was kind of clever, and it became a running gag. They point out that the Predator isn't actually a predator, but he's actually a hunter, and he's misnamed. And I thought, well, is that like a big bone of contention on the internet, and people have been arguing about this for 30 years? Or these people finally realize, oh yeah, that's right, yeah, we should point that out, it's kind of funny.